G'day everyone, this is Rangadad. This isn't financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. Finally got a resolution of this this range. It hasn't been as big of a move as what I kind of anticipated, and this is looking quite bottomy at the moment. The only thing suggesting that we might go a little bit lower at this stage, and it could also just be a retest of this level, is the fact we haven't had a huge amount of open interest as it's gone up. So not a massive increase in that. And it's really, we got a bit of a bottoming signal in here, like that first drop there. But I was expecting a little bit more here, to be honest. Maybe it's just because these ones were so strong. But yeah, that's the only thing that's sort of suggesting we may come back down at the moment. But certainly, luckily, I managed to be awake for these bottom two candles, got out of my short. I left a little bit of a short on just in case, but I think I've got enough long on at the moment that I can just leave the short there, and the long's in decent profit, I'll get rid of it. I still managed to get out of it break even if I do it that way, and be left with a decent long. But yeah, good rip off the bottom here. No vectors in the rip up either. Decent volume, and that's an enticing wick for price to come back to. But I think at this stage, there's a fair bit of upward momentum, and I'd rather be not holding a short at the moment, and rather be holding a long, because typically when you get a V-shaped sort of recovery off the bottom, even with a wick there, you can go on a pretty decent run. And I think, like even here, this one was a slower run up, but it just never looked back. And I remember I was actually in a short through there and just couldn't get out of it in profit. So I ended up canning it in a loss. Obviously, I had longs going at the same time, but it wasn't ideal. So learnt my lesson that time, and very easily could get something like this again from here. Yeah, I think looking pretty decent at the moment for a run up. So selling the rip is probably not a great idea at this stage. I'd be waiting for decent sort of turnaround in price action. But I think the targets for that turnaround, if you see a decent sort of pullback when it hits the 50 EMA on the 15-minute, that's a good spot. Obviously, it's used that to bounce off a couple of times on the way down. That test of the 200 showed the direction as it turns out. But yeah, we don't really have any vectors to the downside at that point. Come across here. So we've taken a little bit of this vector. I think we got down to about 200 and something. Little bit surprised we didn't keep going. I thought once we got down, 64,400 was on the cards. Yeah, 64,300-ish But at this stage, it's hard to claim that we're going down there. The only thing is, like, it just seems like a weird spot for it to stop. Bitcoin can do that. It all just depends where people are happy to start buying it again. So I think short term, be looking for sort of break and retest of the 50 EMA. I think that'll lead us pretty quickly up into the 200. The other weird thing about this is the next vector candle's up around 67,100 or 67,200 at the top of it. So that would actually be a break at the 200 EMA. Could be a fake out of that level, but that's sort of the next unrecovered vector. And it will probably struggle to get through the 15-minute 800 EMA, which is the 1 hour 200, which is at the same level at the moment pretty well as the 200 EMA on the 15-minute. So I think that's going to be the really critical level for the bulls, to just take that. And if we break back above that, I think the next break above the 200 on the 15-minute is probably going to be the one to take us to really show us that a bottom is in. Just got to watch for fake outs, that's all. What else was I going to say on here? I think that's, actually I was just going to change this. I'm using my own vectors in here at the moment. All I'm doing with my vectors is using the last 10 bear candles and the last 10 bull candles to create them, rather than just the last 10 candles in general. Not a hell of a lot of difference, but sometimes there is. So in fact, there's no difference at this stage unless this one's overriding it. No. Yeah, so realistically, if it's going to drop, I think it will hit that low 6400s. Like if we do come back down below this level, maybe just into this wick. But if we come into that wick, I'd be very surprised if we didn't come back down into this area here. Okay. I'd be very, very surprised if we came down into here, which is, that's still a target for me, 61,500. There was a lot of liquidity at that level, all the way up here. There is a little bit of a head and shoulders pattern happening there as well. Might just go to the 1 hour. It's a bit rough, but it's probably almost resolved, to be honest, depending how you look at it. Just hide these. Theoretically, that there is your neckline. And you've got, shoulder, head, shoulder, breakdown. Now we go on the breakout. Oh, that's interesting. That's the 1 hour 800 EMA is sitting right at that level. And there is a blue vector candle in there on the 1 hour. This is a vector candle on the 1 hour as well, this wick. That was a good retest of that neckline too, actually. Now that I'm looking at it. I didn't notice this till this morning. Wasn't really looking at, not much of a pattern guy. Good for confirmation and confluence, but yeah, this is interesting. So maybe it will be a sell the rip, but geez, I think on the 15-minute watching it pretty closely. That would be a good level, 64,300. I've said that in the Discord as well. That's kind of my next target if we do go back down. But yeah, I think at this stage, it's hard to go against this current move on the way up. Pretty strong looking bounce at this stage. Now, interestingly, oh no, that'll be a bit laggy, so not too worried about that. But yeah, that's an interesting proof out of that head and shoulders. It would mean a sweep of this wick, potentially just into this blue vector here. Doesn't necessarily have to come into that, but it wouldn't surprise me if we did do a sweep below this EMA and then come back above it. So it's kind of a weird spot for it to leave it. The only reason I suggested it was going to be a decent spot, I think I called it in the Discord on that candle there, was just because there was actually a little bit of open interest starting to happen. And if we look at the liquidation levels, it took the majority of the liquidations. If we go to, it wasn't the 3-day, I think it was the weekly that I was using. Yeah, so it took the majority of this chunk here. There wasn't a hell of a lot left on the weekly. It annoys me that they don't have the same options on the mobile version of this too. Pisses me off because the 2-week and the 48-hour are actually really handy. Even the 3-day is pretty handy, but they're not on the mobile version of this on the app. Anyway, yeah, it was a pretty decent level there around the 65,400. We swept a little bit lower than it. But yeah, the shorter time frames kind of gave you the bottom of that. So there is a fair chunk in here. That's kind of what the target would be, I reckon. Somewhere around that 64,200-ish would make a fair bit of sense after this rip. But we did leave a fair bit down here too. Doesn't have to keep going. That's the main point of this today, is to just recognize that yeah, it doesn't have to keep going. Sorry about that. Still working on this, but that, for those that are following on from Origin, that bot hasn't got really any decent exit settings on it at the moment. That's just literally buying and selling it based on the ADX with a couple of minor things. So still working on this. Hopefully, if I get a chance, I've got heaps of work on at the moment, but hopefully soon we'll have something. All right. So, excuse me. I think it's actually allergies too. Yeah, I mean, I got pretty close to the 50 EMA. Don't. It's right in the middle of the Bollinger Band as well. The unsmooth Bollinger Band is probably pretty close to that. Yeah, so I did tap the 50 EMA, the proper one, non-smooth one. Um, yeah, hard to tell at this point. A little bit of a sign that could roll over here. But yeah, pretty decent rip. Be trying to sell off. I think I might. I'll see if I'm in profit on the long yet. I have been building it all the way down. I think it's sitting at somewhere close to that as the average buying price. So if I take a little bit off here, if it does drop, it allows me to get back in and just bring that average entry price back in. So I obviously bought more down in this candle when I thought it was bottoming. So I am in profit on those chunks that I bought. And that tends to be the way I'm playing it at the moment. And my system has stabilized a little bit. It's taken me a few grand to figure it out, but I'm getting there. Anyway, I guess that's the short-term prognosis for Bitcoin at the moment. The daily doesn't look as crash hot though. So, and neither does the general stock market. I'll get into that in a second. This is a bit of a sell-off candle. According to the bullish smart money indicator, BBWP is still dropping, which is fine. You'd expect that on a pullback. We have hit the 20 EMA, and like think of these lines on this channel as a rough area. We have almost hit that. Kind of, I don't know that we'll finish this candle here though. I think I'd actually expect it to come back down a little bit over the next few hours, 4.5 hours. We'll probably do pull back a little bit more down into here. Yeah, might have a couple more down days yet, which I mean, it's interesting that this hasn't really shown up a major bottoming at this level. And in fact, open interest is kind of dropping still. Have a quick look at BTC. Yeah, okay. So they're actually still dropping longs at the moment. A little bit strange. I guess, I mean, typically they have waited for a bit of pullback before they've dropped the majority of the longs that have dropped off the books. So I haven't really started buying yet though, in any massive way. That concerns me a little bit, in that it would suggest there is more downside to come. Let's see what this shit show's saying. Yeah, coming into resistance here, which you'd kind of expect. We got here, come right into that supply level. So pullback here wouldn't be untoward. Decent topping candle there on the 3 minute. See this candle blast through that 50. Man, if we close this candle above that value area high, I'd actually be pretty bullish on that. But it looks pretty good for a vector here. Be a little surprised if this doesn't turn into a vector candle, in which case expect some sort of retest of at least the midpoint of it. Although we haven't really done that on the way up, have we? Not yet. So, sorry, thinking out loud. Anyone who's watched this before will know that this is just me thinking out loud. I'll do a little summary at the end, typically. Nothing else to see there, I don't think. NASDAQ pulled back. Not a huge surprise there. Looks like the bulls are dead at the moment. That's just taking out a whole heap of the buying support there. The buyers are exhausted. So vector candle though, potentially watch for rips up into that. But in general, this seems to be the start of that decent pullback we were talking about. I think there's a few others calling for 56.20, which is up in there. Similar sort of level to what I've got here as the first target for the S&P. Equal weight, pulling back. Not as much. I mean, equal weight has done most of the legwork. It's now probably just the Mag 7 that's coming to the party. Yeah, Mag 7's down 2%. So the rest of the S&P is down a bit as well, but it's these guys that are doing the proper move. Oh, has earnings come out yet on Tesla? Surely it can't have. No. This is an interesting move. Into earnings. So we've got about 20 minutes until the close. I think that normally half an hour after close or something. But yeah, that's a little concerning. It could be a bit of a fake out. But man, if Tesla breaks down, we could literally see 182 in the next 2 days. I've actually signed up for an account with BTCC to try and trade some of the bigger stocks and stuff as well. They do tokenized stock trading. But yeah, not looking great for Tesla, but this would be pretty massive fake out if it is. Nvidia's dropping. Again, we're kind of still wanting to see Nvidia come down into earnings. Probably down and sideways. Everything's Mag 7 big time down. That's an interesting candle. Apple's kind of pulling into that upwards trend line there. That's not a bad retest, really, of this trend line as well. If you think of it as a region, probably another down day into this 50 EMA would be on the cards, but it's hit first target there, the 20, and that's a pretty good pullback and retest. If it bounces from here, it's pretty good signs for Apple. It's just a little concerning that these things are doing it so early in the S&P pullback. Meta, again, probably another down day would be handy just to retest this level. And then probably some sideways action into earnings. AMD sitting on the 200 EMA. Airbnb is pulling back a little as well. I'd expect a bit of support around the 129. SMCI is still struggling. ASML is still struggling. I would have thought it would recover more of this candle now. It's worth noting a little bit of a pullback on global liquidity as well. Dixie's still pushing. It's actually broken through that 104. I mean, where does Dixie stop? Next target's 104.5, and then up around 105.2. Geez, I'd be surprised if Dixie runs that hard. The Aussie's fallen through that level as well. That's, yeah, shit. Again, whether this is a fake out or not, like just to sweep people who've got stops under here. Or if we're going back down into this, this vector candle here, that's a wicked daily candle on the Forex market. Jesus. Man, that's interesting. The 10-year yields have obviously gone up pretty hard as well. So people are liking the dollar at the moment. Which is suggesting the bond market's not liking things at the moment, which it's definitely coming down in line. Skew still crushing pretty hard too, actually. So yeah, expect at least a couple more days of downside. Shit, we must be coming into options expiry. Witching this week, I think. So that'll be interesting. Going to be a lot of people with long options that are going to get wiped out, I think. Yeah, this was a good indicator. And again, it would suggest there's probably more downside. A little bit of a bounce here, which tends to not actually happen that often when you do get a big drop through a critical level. Like here, the breakthrough of that, breakthrough of this level. We didn't get a green candle for a while. We did here a little bit, but yeah, interesting little candle there. DJI has obviously pulled back. Gold is having a little pullback at the top here as well. Two vector candles side by side by the look of it. What do we got here? Durable goods, still not there yet. Jolts. That'll be an interesting one. That could see the market really pull back on everything. I wouldn't think gold will pull that back that far, but the market itself. CLT, yeah, we got getting close into that level. Might see a bit of a turnaround on some of these, like bonds and stuff, soon. Will start to support the market. Interesting, banking had a reasonable couple of days. It did pull back earlier though. Home builders or home construction, it's in sort of no man's land. I wouldn't think it would bounce here. Did close the gap that we mentioned though. I'd still expect it to come into the 117. XLY, XLP's finally broken this level too. So again, that's probably going to align with a bit more pullback on the market. And all this is kind of playing with the idea that Bitcoin may have more downside yet to go. I would expect Bitcoin to turn around earlier than the market though. I'd also kind of expect NASDAQ to turn around before the S&P, but the NASDAQ's probably got a decent way that it can run too if it wants to target this vector candle in here. I don't know that we'll get down into there. That's a pretty big pullback, high to low. That's your 10% pullback. Whereas I think 5% is probably more likely. There is a gap there at around 19,500. So I think 19,500 is probably. Hang on, it's actually there. Should be 19,400, 19,500, something around that. But it's not a super strong support level. The stronger support level would be around 18,950. And momentum has crossed pretty hard out of the bullish control zone now, and BBWP is just ticking up. So would be, I mean, that is a possibility. It'd be an interesting timing to do it running into the US election, but there is a bit of uncertainty out there at the moment, I guess. I'll just have a quick look at the equal weight cues. Yeah, so equal weight cues is coming down pretty hard. Probably looking for a bit of a bounce on the equal weight first, to be honest, before really calling it. Just have a quick look, proof out the S&P move as well. So that's, again, another 5.5%. So 5.5% move seems to be likely here. I think the real thing to watch out for signs of a proper turnaround, like the Russell may turn around early. It's got potential to be a bigger mover towards the end of this current cycle that we're in. But for the time being, it looks like it'll pull back pretty hard. There is obviously a gap down here just near this support level that I've had in for a while. So yeah, 210 is going to be a pretty critical level for the Russell. If we break through that, then yeah, there's a couple of levels on the way through, but probably down around the 200, 197 mark. So yeah, looks like a decent pullback. The Japanese market kind of pulled back before the US market. So the weaker market's probably going to do that at the moment. Interesting on the Chinese market. So could be that there's a bit of money flowing this way out of other markets just because of the strength in this and the stimulus that they've got. People are seem to be buying the dip in this. Would have loved to have seen a move a bit deeper, but at 0.5 fib levels be a pretty good one at the moment. But it is struggling to break through that 382 level as well. Probably a close above today's high would suggest we're going back up to the resistance level. And it'll probably break through that, I think. Not a huge day in volume on the Chinese 50. So not necessarily great sign there. Like it could keep going down. DAX looks like it's going to come down. So yeah, general downwards bias on every market at the moment. So hard to be bullish on Bitcoin, and that's the case. US oil hit the 20 and has rejected off that twice now. So looks like we could actually creep a bit lower. That's not a hugely bearish candle though. It's holding up okay. Still 2 hours to go, but could just be a little bit of a rejection at the moment. The bulls are still buying into it. Silver pulled back with gold. This fucking silver versus gold is all over the shop at the moment. That's why my proportion of silver that I've got is less than my gold. Over time, hopefully, silver will catch up. Copper, yeah, it really struggled around the 382. Copper looks like it wants to hit that 426, the 200 EMA, which is pretty close to that 618 level as well. And it'd pretty well be a perfect retest of this W formation, which long term could be quite bullish. And especially like if the Chinese stock market can friggin' do the impossible and just go on a big run, then you would expect copper to actually go with it. China are a pretty big user of that metal. Yeah, I think just have a quick look at the euro. Yeah, euro's coming back into these support levels. Again, another down day on that or two. Wouldn't surprise. Speech. EMI. Yeah. This is the thing that surprises me, and that's the thing that worries me, I guess. As a holder of Australian dollars and getting paid in Australian dollars, it sucks. Yeah, all right. That's about it. Ethereum, it's pretty well recovered that whole vector candle now. So if we do get a couple more down days, which seems likely when you got stochastic momentum coming down that hard, yeah, that's still the target, I think. 2300, 2250-ish. Have a quick look at CME. So CME's had a decent bounce as well. And again, it could just be people with putting buyers in around this level thinking that it's going to bounce off, and Bitcoin could do that. 100% could do that. As I said, if we close above that value area high, yeah, it'd be hard to be not expecting a bit more of a bounce. But just keep an eye out. I am really surprised that there's not more longs coming in. So in summary, I would say that this would be a good point for Bitcoin to bottom and to move away to new all-time highs. What I need to see, if we reject off the 200, or even if we close back below the 50 from here, then I would expect more downside. It could just be to recover the 1 hourly vector that we've got in this region, but there is a lot of targets around that low 64 level as well, which it could do that with a sweep within the same day. But yeah, this move down has been so sort of slow and orderly. It's not normal for Bitcoin to do this sort of thing so slowly. I was expecting more like this, like just a big flush, and then a V-shaped recovery. Didn't really get that. Just suggesting there's still plenty of buyers in the market at the moment, which maybe it will want to go a bit lower just to take advantage of that. So yeah, definitely if we can clear the 50, I'll be looking at that 200 level and the 800, which is the 1 hour 200. If we break back above them and confirm and keep going, then I'd say Bitcoin's finished its downside move for the time being. All right. I think that'll do for today. Another 40 plus minute. I'll catch you later.